Howdy, you soldiers. How can a year feel so long and yet a month so short? Like, it's May? What do you mean it's May? What happened to April? What was I doing in April? I don't know. Apparently reading, because I somehow have 9 books to talk to you all about today. Oh my god, we might have to take this off already. It is so humid in Vancouver right now, yet somehow still windy and cold. And like, I know that BC is along the Ring of Fire fault line, but it feels like my apartment is on top of a hydrothermal vent. It is so warm, and yet I'm so cold at the same time. I'm wearing both shorts and big fuzzy slippers right now. My internal thermostat is all out of whack. Temperature? I barely know her. Maybe I should have made this an iced coffee, but as we know, iced coffee is for pleasure and hot coffee is for business, and we have no time for shenanigans or tomfoolery today. We are getting down to book business. Is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. So like I said, I read 9 books in the month of April, and I gotta yell about them. We got some romance, we got some trauma, we got some people pulling swords made of bone out of their spines, and those are 3 things that I love. We messed with some historical gaze, we took a jaunt down to the underworld, and we once again look into if TikTok is actually good at recommending books. We have a lot to get through, so without further ado, grab a drink, grab a snack, and buckle in while we talk about the 2,986 pages that I read in April. First up is the book that I was the most excited about to come out in April, and I'm sure it was the book that you were the most excited about to come out in April. And in last week's video, I talked a little bit about like, I read it, but I don't want to give spoilers. I want to save that for this next week's video. Well, today's the day, okay? So saddle up, strap in, get ready. We're talking about The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This is Leigh Bardugo's first adult historical fantasy that is set in the 1600s of Spain during the Spanish Inquisition. Our main character, Luzia, is part of the Converso Jewish population who is trying to hide her faith while also trying to understand a small magic that she has that she calls being able to do miracles. But her powers get noticed by the wrong man, and she is brought into this rich man's household who's hoping to use her power to gain favor with the king, because the guy that usually is there is like so on the outs right now. And in Victor's household, she meets Sant'Angel, who is the Familiar, and he is this kind of immortal, cursed being, and he's teaching her to use her magic while also helping her keep her identity hidden as she is training to show off her miracles for the king. This is a beautiful book. You can really tell that Leigh Bardugo has like perfected her craft. The amount of detail and research that she put into this. There's so much in here on the history of Judaism in Madrid and the anger and the fear that the converso population was holding and the constant scrutiny that they were under. What it's like being part of a faith that you don't believe in and the things that you will do to keep yourself and your family safe. But also such a deep dive into where's the line between faith and magic. One of my favorite parts in here is when all the competitors of this miracle competition are talking about how they speak to God and how Luzia doesn't, but she still has this magic, and it's like, if it's impossible to talk to God, whose voice are you hearing? Ooh! Also so funny that Sant'Angel is such a shit disturber. Like, he's 500 years old, he doesn't care anymore. So everyone in here is all about like, oh, miracles and being godly and like your immortal soul, and he just walks over like, yo, what up? What if God's not real? I really enjoyed our side characters, particularly Valentina really grew in a way that I was not expecting. She gives you all these characters that you don't really like, but you can empathize with, and oh, that's a tough balance to strike. All that praise being said, I did find there was a little inconsistency with Luzia's internal monologue and her speaking voice. I kind of wish she was a little sassier, and stripping it down, you can see it's pretty tropey. When I was reflecting on reading this book, I had a thought, and I have not been able to stop laughing about it since. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Tall, handsome, mysterious, 500-year-old magic man who has some kind of dark power finds young, poor, naive girl with power beyond her imagination that has something to do with light. And so he takes her in under false circumstances and trains her in her power to fight for a semi-religious, magical, wartime thing, you know, and then, oh, maybe they're kind of falling in love, but like it's not that healthy. Does that sound like Shadow and Bone? Because that sounds like Shadow and Bone to me! And like, tell me that Sant'Angel is not just Kaz in different font. Quirky coincidences aside, I did immensely enjoy this. It's beautifully written, it has such texture to it, and there's romance, there's betrayal, and there's just a fun little bit of gruesomeness at the end to wrap things up. Speaking of gruesomeness, I did something I almost never do, and that is that I read a sequel. How many sequels did I read this month? 3! I read 3 sequels, which feels like a record in 1 month. But the most gorgeous and gruesome gruesome of the sequels is one that gave me maximum emotional damage, and that was A Vicious Game by Melissa Blair. This is third in the Halfling Saga quartet, all about a half-fae assassin who learns more about her backstory and is involved in this kind of fairy, elf, and human war. A phenomenal new adult fantasy series all about identity and magic and past history, and then also the horrors of war and addiction and having to come to terms with who you've become to survive. Third book in this series did not pull its punches. Holy shit, this book is just trauma. Of course, we get some delightfully complex antagonists and a dreamy love interest that has this whole wild plot twist of his own, a thrilling magical scavenger hunt, and some incredible battle sequences, particularly ship battles on the ocean with the water, and then the magic in the water, and just, oh my god, so good. I also get a kick out of fantasy novels inventing modern things like showers and stopwatches. Like, y'all don't have iPhones or microwaves or flush toilets, but you did invent sunglasses, and I love that for you. We go through the mental trauma of relapsing addiction and the guilt and grief over not being able to save people in a war. And Kira, darling, I know this is war and everything, and they're technically the bad guys, but like, you just killed a lot of people. Like, I know this is your hero's journey, and this is the struggle you need to go through, but like, damn, girl. And truly, I might hate Damien the most out of any villain that I read in maybe the past decade. What if, oh, this guy sucks. Like, I just want to claw his eyes out and punch him in his smug little mouth. Like, what a freaking asshat. And the ending. Girl, are you good? Are any of us good? It's just twist after twist and horrible foreshadowing coming after, well, I was gonna say Chekhov's gun, but like, they don't have guns in this world. So like, after Chekhov's blood dagger, it's just all coming down and it's not good. This is bleak. I cried. It physically hurt my chest to read, and it was so good. I guess now let's talk about the other two sequels that I finished, which are technically companion novels, but Tor sent me both A Restless Truth and A Power Unbound by Freya Marsk, which are the two companion/sequel novels to A Marvelous Light. 1900s, 19-teens historical fantasy that follows the magical society in turn-of-the-century Britain. And they're all gay. In A Marvelous Light, we follow Edwin and Robin as the two of them have to team up to figure out who is behind this series of magical thefts and murders, which uncovers a bigger conspiracy about the foundations of magic in England. And A Restless Truth follows Robin's sister Maud, who has signed up to be a companion for an older lady witch on the cruise from America back to England. But on the first day, this woman turns up dead and some of her belongings are missing, and Maud gets pulled into this plot that centers yet again the ways that magic came to England and how maybe there are people out there trying to unravel it all. And while she decides to untangle this mystery, she ropes in the outrageous Lady Violet and the very grumpy Lord Hawthorne, and they all have to figure out a way to drop the masks that they hide behind and able to stop a murder and maybe fall in love. Let's go, lesbians, let's go! First of all, this book is really fucking funny. Violet is tall and flamboyant and unapologetic. I love her. Maud is cunning and stubborn and enthusiastic. I love her. I love how all our side characters are like begrudgingly there. Like, it feels like they're getting roped into the story against their will. And oh my god, the scandal of it all. Geez, goddamn theater kids. There's more exploration and explanation of magic in this, particularly when it comes to the ways that people do their own magic and like how they kind of cobble together their own spells. Each have their own unique styles and flourishes to spellcasting in something called cradling, which we hear about in the first book, but we get more on in here, and how you can do these hand gestures that both can do magic, but they can also be used as a type of sign language between magicians. The sexy times were spicy, but also very playful. And like, it's okay, Maud, we've all been there, okay? When everyone first comes out, we go a little overboard. Overboard. Cruise ships. Puns, jokes, but wow, I do not agree with everything that is said in here. Like, for some reason, redheads are described multiple times as unfortunate looking. And like, do I look like a pink, weirdly freckled person who's just like doing their best? Don't answer that. The ending was a delightful twist of magic and cunning, but it also ended on a very sinister note, which was why I was so grateful to have the next book, because I immediately picked up A Power Unbound, and thank God that I had this here, because this book was wonderful. And this follows two characters that we met in A Restless Truth. Lord Hawthorne, aka Jack Alston. After an incident losing his magic when he was younger, he's been out of magical society for over a decade, but now is being drawn back in as Mott and Robin uncover this plot. And Alan Ross, who is a reporter that Maud ropes in to their plot on the ship, but now is back in London, and they're using him and his non-magical abilities to be a spy and thief. And as Jack and Alan spend more time together as reluctant allies, of course, things start happening, feelings come up as they gain the courage to confront their past and the bravery to confront their futures. For the first two, I would say you could read them as standalones, but by the time you get to Power Unbound, you really should have read the other ones before this, because this makes very little sense as a standalone. I'm not going to give too many spoilers for this one in particular, but there's a major deep dive into classism and privilege and power imbalances, how there will always be barriers between people and how that affects your relationships. Jack and Alan together are interesting. I think they have the most dynamic chemistry out of all the pairs, but the spicy times are also the most interesting in this book because, you know, people from 1910, they can have humiliation fetishes. I mean, if someone spoke to me like that, I would cry. But you know, it's educational. This does explore kink, and it does it in a safe and controlled environment. Thank you, Freya Mars. Because when you're playing with consent and power dynamics, you always want to have a safe word. You want to make sure everyone's on the same page and they communicate properly about that. Oh, mwah, beautiful. Also, something I underestimated in this book was how many people I would want to punch in the face. After reading this, I want to fight someone. I want to fight many someones, actually. I want to fight every single man in the Magical Assembly. A very cool ending to the series. I rushed through maybe the last 100 pages because things just kept getting piled up and up and up. This book is the culmination of friendships and relationships, understanding that people are messy and rebinding these broken magical bonds. It was really beautiful. So if you're looking for a new queer historical romantasy series that has hijinks and hilarity, but also a surprising amount of deep thoughts on what it means to be queer and upholding systems of privilege, I would highly recommend these. Speaking of a romantasy, I had a delightful romp with this Chinese fantasy-inspired modern romance thriller that was The Emperor and the Endless Palace by Justinian Huang. I was sent this advance copy by HarperCollins and like, oh, he's a stunner. I just realized this is a book that has the soulmate trope that I didn't hate. I need a moment to collect myself. Because yeah, this book follows two souls as they keep getting reincarnated and meeting one another again throughout history, and in here in 3 different timelines, where in the year 4 BC, a young courtier attempts to seduce the emperor, only to find out that court intrigue is more dangerous than they thought. In 1740, a young innkeeper opens the door to a mysterious traveler who turns out to be more than he says he is. And in modern day Los Angeles, a student meets somebody at a party and has a feeling that they've met before. We follow them through bloody political machinations of the ancient emperor's palaces, and we also talk about doing uppers in an underground rave in San Francisco. I'm also realizing I can't tell you guys too much more about it because of the way that reincarnation is structured in here. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but I did love the historical parts the most. I really liked how we get to explore how sex and romance has been used to manipulate people like from the beginning of time. It's also very funny. I was cackling out loud at multiple times, which was a little awkward on public transit. I love the depth of the side characters, and I especially like in the modern timeline when we're explaining reincarnation, we pull a what's the sitch? And is he, you know, of the cut sleeve persuasion? The twist ending was really cool. Like, I was kind of sneaking up on you as you're connecting the dots through space-time, and then it's like, surprise, bitch! And everything you've seen online about the spicy scenes is correct. Maybe that's why it's so humid in here. Even though I did enjoy this. This is the first romantasy book that I have read that is about gay men written by a gay man, which is great because the romantasy genre is overrun by feminine authors, and even if they write queer men, that's very different than the actual queer man perspective. So I love that this exists for queer men to enjoy romantasy, but I just think I didn't enjoy it as much because I am not a gay man. And that's okay. Queer men, this one's for you. But if you're a queer sapphic, you're probably going to enjoy this book a lot more. Ooh, I am on a roll with the segues today. A fun, spicy little novella that I picked up this month was The Succubus Prize by Katie Robert, which is part of the Deals with the Demon series. As far as I know, this is like a mini novella series that all centers a human woman agreeing to a bargain with a demon and then them falling in love, which, like, if I wasn't currently in a relationship, that's something I would be looking for. This one seemed the most interesting to me out of all of them, so I started with this one, and it's about a girl named Belladonna who, to help with her sister's cancer diagnosis, she makes a deal with a demon so that her family can, get money and treatment, and in exchange she'll spend 7 years with this demon to help stabilize the realm. And Rusalka, our love interest, is freaking sick. First of all, non-binary love interest, which, love that. Just like fairies, demons, they're not gonna be under the shackles of gender. Like, they live millennia. You think they're not gonna try some stuff? But they're super tall and have this banging pixie cut, have claws and a tail, and they arrive on the scene, making this big dramatic entrance with this beautiful dress, and also they're on fire. And while I got what I expected, which was a smutty little one-off novella, a surprising amount of exploration of religious trauma, because Belladonna grew up in a religious family and she's dealing with the guilt and shame of just being a woman. But I really appreciated how that was actually pretty well explored throughout this 160 pages. Also some demons just politicking with one another and talking about the burden of ruling and how demons feed off of dreams. Super cool. And of course it's Katie Roberts, so the sexy times were literally on fire. But reading it, I'm like, that's so many people. But I mean, they make it work, so I guess I just haven't been imaginative enough. Now, of course, this can only do so much for me. For example, they say, I love you after a day. And just a tiny bit of a breeding kink. Not as bad as Court of the Vampire Queen. Good lord, that book. Not enough that I had to put it down, but just enough I knew it was there. But damn, if the Insomne Noir court needs an admin or something, oh my god, hit me up. Next up is an adult contemporary romance that's getting quite the buzz online that I found out recently is a little controversial. So let me tell you my thoughts on How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwan. This follows author Helen and screenwriter Grant as the two of them are once again brought into each other's orbits after a tragic accident that bonded them many years ago. Helen's best-selling dark academia YA books are now being turned into a CW TV show, and Grant is being brought on as the screenwriter as kind of a last ditch effort for revamping his career. But the two of them haven't spoken for over a decade, and feelings of the past come up as they're both trying to be professional, and then maybe something more as they both learn more about each other and are kind of uncovering what really happened so many years ago. These adult anxieties are so relatable that I feel insulted. I've never read a book that goes so deeply into the emotional turmoil and anxiety of a friendship of convenience, feeling stifled by your family while not being connected to your culture. There is romance and spice in this, and I 100% agree with Grant. In this day and age, there is only one way to do seduction, and it is to watch 45-minute long cabinet building tutorials on YouTube. I kind of wish that we had gotten more of the everyday goings on with the show, because we don't really see the show. We just kind of hear about it and then see the two of them banging on set sometimes after everyone's gone home. And I was like, no, what's happening with the show? The thing that a lot of people are talking about, and the thing that I still don't quite know how I feel about it, is that this initial incident, this tragedy that brought them together, is that Helen's sister, younger sister, committed suicide by jumping in front of Grant's car. So there is a lot about grief and how your family is affected by someone that ends their life, and how do you go forward living like that? How Grant constantly has panic attacks and has a trouble, connecting with new people who might learn about his past. And Helen's family thinks that he was the one that, did it, and they're kind of not putting any blame on the sister. And how the two of them together can kind of come to a mutual understanding and come to a place where they can help heal the other one's hurts and then move on together. The writing about that topic was good, but the concept of them falling in love was a little yikes. I don't see him as somebody who did a bad thing on purpose, but it's also why couldn't they just have been weird, estranged friends? Or why couldn't they have gone to the same high school and maybe he was friends with her sister? Or she had this misconception of him as a popular kid, and then decades later we're learning more about each other. Seeing her author's note about how she talked to people whose siblings have passed, I was kind of impressed and respect her for doing such a hard topic, but at the same time being interesting idea that you had in the first place. I'm still personally a little conflicted over it. So I think I liked it, And I'm gonna go with that as my final answer. As soon as the sun goes away, my whole apartment just turns into a cave. Goblin mode, activate. Actually, maybe this is thematically accurate because the next book we're gonna talk about takes place over a 5-year winter. Second last is the delightfully spooky, oddly magical, and ridiculously shiny Otherworldly by F.T. Lukens that I was sent by Simon Teen. Oh, I forgot. I was sent this by Avon HarperCollins. Just keeping the record straight. Ellery is a non-binary teen who does not believe in the supernatural, even though they live in a place that's had a 5-year winter. They believe that if there was a goddess, surely she would not be abandoning all the farmers in the region and leaving Ellery's family to starve. And Knox is a familiar of the otherworld who helps strike bargains at crossroads, but when the person that he is tethered to dies, and suddenly there are these monsters after him that say they come from his goddess who he hasn't been able to contact, he runs into Ellery and quickly strikes up a bargain and then draws Ellery into this kerfuffle of goddesses and creatures with weird eyes and magical shenanigans. F.T. Lukens books are such a joy, and this book is no different. It is full of whimsy and magic and friendship and so much. It's just so fun. It's all about enjoying the small moments and like taking stock of the experiences that you have that make you happy, because that's how you actually live your life. Ellery is a total cynic who would do anything for the people that they love, and I love how that plays into the classic scenes of like the meet cute, you know, the third act breakup, traditional, you know, the like, I'm actually a magical person from another realm and I need your help, and most traditional YAs like, oh my god, I can't believe magic exists. But here Ellery is like, I'm sorry, what the actual fuck? Wow, I remember when YA protagonists had so much hope and joy, and look at us now, we're all so jaded. As always, in an F.T. Lukens book, the found family was delightful. I loved Charlie and Zeta. They're the perfect combination of like cool mom's voice of reason, but also wild party ants. And then the ending got unexpectedly dark, but in a way that I really liked. Like, we just take a nice little jaunt down to the underworld and like speak with some chthonic goddesses, Orpheus and Eurydice vibe going on, and like, I'm here for it. Also, maybe some more vague religious trauma, because like Knox goes through a whole arc of reassessing where he wants to put his faith and like who he wants to put his faith in, but he's somehow also like a creature of belief in faith. It's very interesting. What a crossroads, literally. That being said, I do wish we had developed the side plots a little bit more. There was a lot of side characters who I felt were underdeveloped or like didn't really make a difference, especially the mom and like the family. I would have really liked to have dove more into the family dynamic. Anyways, next winter, maybe take a look into who you're worshiping and perhaps invest in a better snow shovel. And lastly, okay, one more. Thank God that we're on the last book because my stomach just made an ungodly noise. Something I've been getting more into in the last year or so is that I've been reading more novellas, because I fully admit I am highly prejudiced towards short stories that are less than like 200 pages, because I was traumatized as a 15-year-old in 10th grade by a teacher whose name I will not tell you because of privacy reasons, but that I could name. But Tor in particular has started publishing more fantasy novellas, and as they are a publisher that I work with pretty often, sometimes they send me things, and I can confidently say this is my new favorite novella, and it's When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. Because if loving 163-page books about Polish folklore, holy orders that use swords of bone, witches descended from Baba Yaga, and vampire fight rings is wrong, I don't ever want to be right. Our main character Demeter comes from a family whose legacy lies in this holy order of soldiers who split their souls to be able to create swords of bone that they literally pull out of their own spine in order to hunt down monsters of legend. Bitch, what? Our other main character, Ayla, is a nightmare, a Zmora, and she has recently been given this curse that's been passed down in her family. Demeter, who has not drawn his own sword for quite a while due to his own reasons, strikes a bargain with Ayla that he will help her try to break her curse if she will help bring him to Baba Yaga. There's Polish throughout the book and a big emphasis on feeling disconnected from your culture and what it's like being the children of immigrants. And then in both the human world and the monstrous world, kind of breaking down perceptions and prejudices, and also dealing with generational trauma, everybody's favorite, which ties into the title, When Among Crows, You Must Caw As They Do, which is a Polish saying that in here focuses on the mimicry of living a human life. I also love how she wrote magic flows into places of debt. So the more people that are indebted to you, the more powerful you are. Also, surprise, It's gay. Literally, I was halfway through this, drinking tea on my couch, and almost spit my drink out because I was like, oh, wait, this is gay? Also, my favorite piece of lore that I will be considering canon from this point onward is that Baba Yaga owns a lava lamp. And despite being this gritty, ethereal, urban fantasy, it was surprisingly a very sweet ending, no pun intended. But there was some body horror that caught me unaware, which I do think is on me because we have people pulling swords out of their own spines. Baba Yaga's lava lamp really lulled me into a false sense of whimsy there, and I wasn't quite prepared for it. So cheers, Veronica Roth. You've come a long way, and I can't wait to see what you have in store next. And that is that on that. I swear I can wear a shirt like a normal person, but this is sliding all over the place. You know what? Maybe it's good that I read so many things because my brain has now attached a memory to each of these books, which is helping me remember what I did in April. So like, for example, I remember reading Emperor of the Endless Palace as I was in line to get tickets for the International Burlesque Festival in Vancouver. And then I was reading A Restless Truth on transit while going to another book event. And then I read The Familiar after I went to Indie Bookstore Day, which is when I bought it, because Indie Bookstore Day weekend is my partner and I's anniversary, which is like super cute and whatever. And then I spent one very memorable Saturday night reading A Vicious Game and crying to myself alone on my couch. Please leave down below what you read in April if you have any thoughts and feelings about the stuff that I read, or if maybe you found a new favorite. I was checking up on my Goodreads earlier and I am smack dab in the middle. I'm at 40 books this year, 13 books ahead of schedule. Oh, there's that burned out gifted kid energy. Okay, I can't chat anymore. I have to actually make dinner that's not coffee and maybe finish the book that I'm currently reading. You know where to click to like the video. You know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are all having a nice day or night wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!